SpiritLife is a 9-month program. I know, 9 months, right? Dana and Peggy and Cindy, thank you for hanging in there. It's a program that encourages and supports participants as they explore what it means to walk the spiritual path. It's open to members and friends of the 3 Hartford area Unitarian Universalist congregations, the Universalist Church of West Hartford, the Unitarian Society of Hartford, and UU East in Manchester. Now, SpiritLife assumes that you can't benefit from a spiritual practice by reading about it. You've got to do it, however tentatively and uncertainly. And you walk into that uncertainty and the inherent paradoxes of the practice with good intention, and then see how you feel when you walk out of it. And so SpiritLife is experience-based. There isn't a lot of reading. We don't consult experts. Instead, we explore and experiment with spiritual practices that help us connect to our own souls and the sources of grace that we find in the world. And though the program may have ended for this year, the journey continues for all of us, because there really is no endpoint, no destination. We never really fully arrive. There is only the quest to connect, and that continues throughout all our lives. Today, a couple of program participants, Peggy Webb from UU Manchester and Dana Donovan from the Hartford Meeting House, will check in with us on their journeys.
Good morning. What is spirituality? I'd like to begin my discussion with a Hindu story that I like. Imagine that you're in a dark room, a very, very dark room, and you've been told that in that room is a large snake. You can see the snake's silhouette, and it frightens you. But one day as you are in the room, there's a flash of light that illuminates the room. And you see that what looked like a snake really is a rope. Although the flash of light was just momentary, it showed you the truth. All of a sudden, that long-held fear of the snake vanishes. The room was never the same again. The story that I just recited by Advaita Vedanta describes a common view of spirituality, where suddenly your understanding is illuminated. There are nuances to spirituality, and in the 9-month SpiritLife course that 8 of us UUs from the 3 Hartford area congregations had with Tom Gervais as our leader, we spent time focusing on and exploring the spiritual, mystical, or transcendent experience. We convened twice a month and discussed what it means to be spiritual, what it has meant to us in the past, and what we hope it will be to us in the future. We tried daily practices to see what helped us, what didn't help us. And not only did we get together twice a month, in the intervening time, we had practice partners where we would check in and talk about how we were doing. The 9-month duration allowed us to really get to know the topic of spirit life and allowed us to get to know each other as well. As we spoke with each other, we learned that spirituality expresses itself in different ways. And one frequently mentioned way was that a person can experience elation and openness with the natural world around us. This was often the focus of our spirituality discussions. In this version of transcendency, we have an enhanced relationship with the environment, the trees, the oceans, mountains, everything around us. Also, we may experience a deepened relationship with other people and with animals. Speaking of animals, most of us had pets during these Zoom sessions, and we realized how important these pets were to us. And I would like to say that our pet, our dog, was well known for loudly snoring throughout the session. I benefited from the focus of the spiritual in my everyday life. I found that I was no longer too busy or too distracted by mundaneness or regularity of life, and I could start to see the spiritual around me, the spiritual connections in my routine, the connections with other people. One day, as I was getting ready and was beginning to talk about the spirituality of nature with my practice partner, I looked out the window in our loft, which is up high, and I saw the trees dancing in the wind. The trees were dancing. They weren't just moving one way and then the other way all together. They were all moving differently. How many times had I seen the trees swaying in the wind, but only now did I realize that they were communicating with each other. And I was, at that moment, part of their life and communication. And it was a touching moment for me. There's another type of spiritual experience that I would like to describe. It is the profound, the very profound, unexpected, transitory, indescribable, profound experience. And I had just such an experience when I was 14 years old, and I've carried it with me through the succeeding 55 years of my life. I didn't make this up. I didn't imagine it. I didn't exaggerate it. I was not having mental problems. I didn't know it was going to happen, but it happened. It stayed, and then it left. William James, in his famous work, Varieties of Religious Experience, outlined 3 common markers of the mystical experience. First, ineffable. It's incapable of being fully described. It must be felt. Second, transience. It doesn't stay forever. It comes and it goes. Third, passivity. The receiver of the experience does not invite it, and the receiver does not excuse it. The receiver is unable to control it. It just happens. My own experience met all of James's criteria. From this mighty experience, I came to know that there was a force larger in life than we understand. And I also came to believe that my own life has significance. I want to emphasize the importance of spirituality in everyday life. I don't need to go somewhere exotic on a pilgrimage. My pilgrimage is in my everyday existence, where the mundane can become miraculous. I already mentioned the experience of the dancing trees. I have another one to share with you. For a long time, I've collected old books. I've always felt that books had their own story to tell, and that story was beyond the story that was on their pages. beyond those words, the books could tell the lives of all the people that had read them, the people that had held them and decided not to read them, the people that had passed the book on to somebody else, the life that book felt while it sat gathering dust on the shelf. One day I glanced at a 100-year-old book that's on one of my dusty shelves, The Idols of New England. As I perused the details of the book, I found links to my own life, link after link, and these were sort of personal links, links that I would not have expected. That old book that had collected dust for decades had something to say to me, much to say to me. Again, my focus on spirituality allowed me to look at that book and see something more than dusty paper. In conclusion, I will say that the benefit of the transcendent or spiritual experience is that the person can find more joy and meaning in life. It helps us overcome great hardship. It helps to give us a sense of purpose in our own life. Max Ehrmann coined these famous words. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here, and whether or not it is clear to you now, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive God to be. And whatever your labors and aspirations in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace with your soul. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Donovan, and I'm a member of the Unitarian Society of Hartford. And for the last 9 months, I've been taking the SpiritLife course under the mentorship of Tom Gervais. About 6 weeks ago, I would guess, Tom sent an email around to us asking if any two of us, there were 8 taking the course, any two of us would like to do a presentation here in Fern Street. Peggy graciously emailed back right away to accept and volunteer, and then there was silence among the rest of us. So at the next meeting, he asked again, anybody want to volunteer to be the second reading? And we're all like, avoiding eye contact, until finally I felt kind of embarrassed for Tom and ashamed of my reaction, so I volunteered. When I signed up for SpiritLife, I really didn't know what to expect, or whether I'd like it or stick with it through to the end. I was at the very least hesitant about the whole idea. Let's face it, 9 months of Zoom meeting is a really long time. But as we were in the middle of COVID and there wasn't much else going on, I figured I might as well give it a try. As a relatively new UU, I hadn't had much experience in small group ministry. I did participate in a beloved conversations group at USH, which I enjoyed and learned a lot from, but that was a very different focus, so I wasn't sure what to expect with this group. Now, as we approach the end, I'm a little saddened to think that this journey in fellowship is coming to an end. I have had the privilege of meeting and making wonderful new friends from UUSC, Fern Street, and USH. People that I may have never gotten to know this well otherwise. It has helped me expand my understanding of the expanse, diversity, and acceptance within Unitarian Universalism. The program has been educational, intense at times, often fun, and always challenging. The real challenge is to dig deeper within yourself. As the name SpiritLife implies, the goal is to open oneself to a more spirit-filled life. We are often, if not always, caught up in a very busy, hectic, and mundane life. Our spirit, our soul, often suffers and withers because of this. This journey was an opportunity to step back, reflect on who we were, where our paths are on our journey, and to refresh our spirit in the process. My own spiritual journey has been going on for about 50 years, since I was about 20. I was raised in the Catholic Church, attended Catholic high school, but began questioning my beliefs while I was in college. At 26, my wife and I and our 3 daughters moved into the Unitarian Society of Brothers community, which at that time was in Norfolk, Connecticut. We lived there for 6.5 years in complete community of goods, surrounded by the love of brothers and sisters. And while we loved the community life, we eventually felt that some of our personal beliefs were at odds with the religious tenets of the Unitarian Church. So, sadly and hesitantly, we left and returned to what they called the outside world. Over the next 10 years or so, we tried out and attended a number of different churches, Lutheran, Congregational, Methodist, and some born-again Christian fellowships. Eventually, my wife became discouraged and stopped attending church. I should also add that at this time we were trying to raise 8 children. Then around 1994, I became interested in paganism, Wicca, especially studying the ideas of the beliefs of my ancestors, the Celts. I spent the last 25 or so years studying the mindset of what I call Celtic spirituality. It is the idea of living life totally immersed in spirit, such that there is no separation between the mundane and the spiritual. All of life is a fusion of both. Over those years, I eventually became an elder and a high priest of our coven. 3.5 years ago, I walked into the USH meeting house only to see about renting space there for our coven and to meet for the Sabbaths for our coven to meet during the winter months. The first person to greet me was Reverend Kathy Ryan Starr. I was coming in, she was heading out. But she took time to talk to me for 20 minutes or so. I was immediately astonished at the openness and acceptance of her and the other UUs I met that day. And I made it a point to come to at least one of their meetings. 6 months later, I became a member of USH. I am still a pagan and a Unitarian Universalist, and I see no conflict between the two. The atmosphere of our SpiritLife group is very much like that of the coven. Close and intimate, always inquiring, always challenging, and always welcoming, and so much fun when we come together. Over these last 9 months, I have come to look forward to our bi-monthly meetings. Looking back and looking inward, I have come to see that my own spirit life has ebbed and waned over the years. The SpiritLife program helped me to realize just how much I have let it wane during the last few years, especially my personal practices such as meditation, contemplation, and prayer. I had become complacent even as a pagan, and I have to admit that the last 5 years or so I had come to see my position as high priest as somewhat of a burden, when in reality it is a privilege and honor, filled with much inner fulfillment and lots of joy. Because of the SpiritLife program, I feel that I am in a much better place now, more in touch with my spirit side. One area that I know it has helped me is in listening to others, really listening, not just going through the motions. Having taken this program, I feel more in tune, both as a UU and as a pagan. The 9 months that once seemed so long have now disappeared. Too soon we have reached the end. My only regret about the program is that I have not been able to meet in person the 8 new friends I made during this time. In fact, today is the first time I've seen 3 of them. It was my surprise when during our last meeting, we all agreed that we would get together sometime this summer for a cookout. My hope is that we all stay friends and stay connected for a long time. And finally, I want to give my sincerest thanks to Tom Gervais, who ran our SpiritLife program. We could not have asked for a better mentor. I cannot imagine the amount of time and effort Tom put into preparing for these meetings. Tom was always challenging, always encouraging, and always hopeful. Thank you, Tom.